So you want to start a clothing brand. Design the clothes, put them in the market, watch the money come in. It doesn't work like that. Not even close. Most people think starting a clothing brand means sketching some designs, finding a manufacturer, and posting on Instagram. That's roughly true, except before any of that actually works, you need somewhere between $51,000 and $152,000 just to reach launch day. Of course, you have that lying around. But the exact number depends on how complex your designs are and how competitive your category is. Streetwear and swimwear, for instance, tend to cost more upfront than basic t-shirts. Here's where that money actually goes. You'll spend $100 to $500 per sample, and you won't get the fit right on the first attempt, or the second. Then comes the manufacturer, who won't even take your call unless you commit to a minimum order, usually 500 units per design, sometimes 1,000, at $10 to $40 a unit. That's $5,000 to $40,000 committed, non-refundable, before you know if a single stranger wants to buy it. On top of that, another $5,000 to $30,000 goes toward branding, because in this industry, how the label looks is the product before a single stitch matters. Now, you might be wondering, is there a faster and cheaper way in? Like buying an existing brand instead of building one from nothing? There is, and it's exactly how the smart money does it. In February 2020, Authentic Brands Group and Simon Property Group bought Forever 21 out of bankruptcy for just $81 million. A brand with thousands of stores worldwide, a name every teenager on the planet already recognized, decades of customer data, and an entire supply chain already built, for less than what some startups spend chasing a single viral moment. 6 months later, the same buyers picked up Brooks Brothers, a 200-year-old American icon, for $325 million. For a company that's dressed nearly every U.S. president since its founding, Authentic Brands doesn't manufacture a single garment itself. It buys the name, licenses it out to operators who handle the actual production, and collects a royalty on everything sold under that label, forever. It's the same trick banks use when they lend out other people's deposits at a markup, except here, the deposit is a logo. But manufacturing and buying your way in are only half the business. The other half is what happens after someone actually clicks buy. Fashion has one of the highest return rates of any retail category on Earth. 20 to 40% of everything sold online comes back. Some of it isn't even damaged. Customers buy an outfit, wear it once, for a night out or a photo, and return it days later for a full refund. A practice the industry quietly calls wardrobing. It costs retailers close to $2 billion a year, and there's very little any single brand can do to stop it without punishing its honest customers in the process. In 2014, American Apparel was one of the fastest-growing clothing companies in the country, with revenue that had climbed 440% in 3 years, past $211 million, all sewn and cut inside its own factory in downtown Los Angeles. Its founder, Dov Charney, had built the entire brand around one idea: made in America, ethically, in-house, no offshoring, at a time when every competitor was racing to Bangladesh and Vietnam to cut costs. Then the board removed him as CEO amid a string of sexual harassment allegations he denied and fought in court for years. With Charney gone, the identity that had carried the company for 2 decades went with him. Competitors with cheaper overseas manufacturing ate into its core business. Losses piled up every single year from 2010 through 2015. On October 5, 2015, American Apparel filed for Chapter 11 with $199.3 million in assets against $397.6 million in debt. It filed again in 2016. By 2017, what remained of the company, the name, the archives, the trademarks, sold to a Canadian sock manufacturer for $88 million. The Los Angeles factory that once employed thousands closed for good. A company that once proved a clothing brand could be a moral statement became a lesson in what happens when the moral statement and the founder are the same fragile thing.
There are a few rules that separate the brands that survive from the ones that end up exactly like that. First, never let a single design decide your fate. Nasty Gal, Rent the Runway, dozens of others learned this the hard way, betting entire seasons on trends that either peaked too early or never landed at all, then sitting on warehouses of unsold inventory, bleeding cash every month it didn't move. Second, watch your return policy as closely as you watch your revenue. A generous returns page might win you the sale today and quietly hand half of it back tomorrow. Third, know that the person most likely to steal from you probably isn't a stranger. Employee theft accounts for roughly $26 to $50 billion of retail losses every year in the US alone. And apparel sits among the highest shrinkage categories in retail, above 2% of total sales in some segments. The warehouse worker skimming units off a shipment, the store associate ringing up a friend's discount that was never approved. The returns clerk who loses a scanned item has quietly cost more brands their margin than any competitor ever did. Time to pull it together and answer the actual question. How much money do you make if you do this right? Let's run the math on two realistic versions of your brand. Option 1, you build from scratch. You put in your $100,000 or so across product, manufacturing, and branding. Year 1, you're likely losing money. That's normal. Almost every new clothing brand does, with revenue somewhere between $80,000 and $200,000 and a net profit near zero. Most of it plowed straight back into inventory and ads just to survive. By year 5, if you're one of the 1 in 5 brands still standing, revenue crosses $1 million. Margins finally reach 10 to 20%, and you're paying yourself something real for the first time. Option 2, you buy your way in instead, licensing a smaller, faded name for a fraction of what Forever 21 or Brooks Brothers went for. Something in the low hundreds of thousands, rather than hundreds of millions. You skip years of building brand recognition from zero, inherit an existing, if shrunken, customer base, and start closer to profitability on day 1. But you inherit the baggage too. Whatever killed the brand the first time is usually still sitting there, waiting for you to make the same mistake twice. Either way, most people who start a clothing brand never see 6 figures in personal profit. The ones who do spent years learning the numbers most founders only discover after the money's already gone.